Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here and checking out the series. You know what to do. Like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with your favorite artists. Speaking of favorite artists, I'm so excited today. Zella is here and back with a brand new record. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
It's great to see you. You've got a new album called Sunday in Heaven. I think there is a bit of finally to this. The big breath.
Yeah.
Because there's been singles and there's been EPs, but it's been what, like 6 years since the album, right?
Yeah, it has been 6 years since Kicker. 6 long, lonely years. No, it's been good. It's been really, really enriching. I feel like I've lived dog years every year, since getting to where I'm at now, which is good. It's going to be really liberating to finally have this record out. I'm really excited for everyone to hear it, and everyone involved has worked so hard, and it's a beautiful record, and I'm really proud of it. So
I'll co-sign on that. It's a beautiful record. It's a very fun record, but it does sound like, I mean, and again, it's not like, you've been stagnant. There has been music being released, like a lot of it over the past few years, but I do feel like there is a journey to this record, maybe more so than usual. Can you talk about that? I mean, what was the path to here? Because if folks weren't paying attention to the songs in between and only remember that last record, this is very different from that one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I came out with an EP 2020 with Dan Auerbach, and it was a collaboration with Easy Eye Sound and Concord, and we released that together. And it was kind of, I look at it now, there would have been no way to tell or to gauge or to really like prophesy that it was going to take this long. I mean, it had a lot to do with like where I was with my previous record contract with my previous label, and like some of my diehard fans like know that narrative. People that just like, there are people still that are just finding Kicker, like that's a really interesting part of how the world works, in my world, this world, our world, especially with Spotify and playlisting and everything. Like once it's out there, there's no really like controlling the narrative or just in what order people are receiving things. So, and also COVID had a big sort of impact, kinda like a small, a small impact on the schedule of everything. So in the meantime, I just really tried to like keep my head up and move forward and continue to release music and stay active, because it really is like the least I can do. And aside from the least I can do, it's what I do. So, not being able to release the record in its entirety until now, all those single releases kept me busy and also kept, a hold on just sort of my narrative and what I'm trying to tell, and sort of this like evolution from where I was 6 years ago to where I'm at now. If you've been following along, I think that each video and each song and each piece of work really, look back at all of that and I'm just like, oh my God, it's like looking down after you've like gone on this like really fucking incredible hike in Griffith Park to the Hollywood sign, and you're like, it's really far up here, yeah. So
well, that sound I think is important on this, because it's such a unique, a lot of times playful sound. I mean, there's sometimes where you do get the 70s LA vibe, and sometimes you get a roller skating party on a Saturday night vibe. What were you searching for? How did you arrive to the sound?
The sound was kind of like pieced together. I started writing, like songs for the record. I wrote so many songs, like 50 songs to try to like figure out. I mean, it just was like a really explosive time creatively, which was good. It was after I got off my label with Hollywood Records, and I moved to a new apartment. in Los Feliz, like right at the base actually of Beechwood Canyon, where you can see the Hollywood sign. And I was living with my sister. It was like very refreshing. It was just like the dawn of this new era. And I was just penning songs in the kitchen, you know, every day. And it was a really time of like real like solace, and there wasn't a lot of activity happening just because getting off the label wasn't like as easy as like just sending the email and like I request to unsubscribe. You know, it doesn't work that way. And so for a while I wasn't able to release music, and I wasn't really allowed to tour either until all of those things were ironed out. And in the meantime, I was just writing and recording demos with my friend John Vasquez, and he was really, really instrumental, no pun intended, on really just kind of helping me to gather all the demos, you know, to like really just sit in the room with me. And he was living in Chino at the time, and so I was like driving down there every week in my old car with no air conditioning in the middle of summer. It would have been like, you know, 2019, and just making demos and being able to listen to everything back. And there was sort of, you know, there was a direction and a tone. Sometimes it's hard for me to objectively listen to my music. Like I always like, oh, I'm so fearful of the question that I get asked all the time. I don't know why it's still so scary. It's like, how would you describe your music? And I'm like, that's not for me to do. That's for you to do.
Right.
But you know, so the demo form of the record was being made, and then when we went out to Nashville, you know, we met up with Jay Joyce, and we stayed in Nashville for about 3 weeks. We had a week of pre-pro, and then just 1 week of tracking, or a week and a half of tracking, and then the rest was just mixing, and then driving back to LA. And the record really took on a different shape when we got on into the studio with Jay Joyce. You know, it kind of turned into this more dancey record that I was not expecting. You know, I think it's good. It's really good. Like the record moves a lot more than I was making it move when I was like in Chino and John's, you know, bedroom studio, just like being sad girl, like sad girl. The one like upbeat song that I did have that I was like, oh, that's cool. That's like got a little bit of you know, I did a cover of You Sexy Thing, and I really love performing that song, and energetically it's a really fun one. And Dance for Love was kind of, you know, in that vein a little bit, but everything else was more sultry. And then Jay Joyce really helped kind of just pick it up and out of itself, and sort of just bring a little more sparkle to it that I think it's really the perfect timing, you know, like we're able to go and see live music again. And right. I would rather be playing high energy music because I feel high energy after being, you know, through this time and into this new space where I'm able to, you know, we're all able to like connect with people again. So it is sort of has this like celebratory feel to it. I mean, it's called Sunday in Heaven, so
it's got to mirror that at least somehow, right?
Yeah, totally.
I don't want this to seem like the only takeaway that I got from all that, but when you went to Nashville, was it still the car without the air conditioning? Because that's I have one of those. That's a long drive.
It was a rental. Yeah, we couldn't do that to ourselves. This is way too far of a drive.
It's a hike.
Yeah, it is. It's fun though. It really did feel like this kind of like pilgrimage, you know.
Yeah.
Out to Nashville, and I love long drives. You know, really good for thinking. And when we arrived in Nashville, we were ready to make that record. But we did have air conditioning. Yeah.
It's just right down the road from me, Nashville. I've taken that drive before.
That's,
that's it. Well, you like long drives. That's about the longest drive you can take right there.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah.
Middle of the country.
Yeah.
Well, you know, in these songs themselves, you know, the way I was saying, they kind of got built up in Nashville, but they're so interesting, especially on the front half of this record where it is the more up-tempo side of it. But even like, I think my favorite song is Constructing Girls. and
Oh yeah.
it's
Yeah,
like
me too.
it's like
I love that song.
yeah, almost Carnival-esque, almost Tom Waits-esque in that
Yeah.
style.
Yeah.
How did you construct Girls?
Um, I mean, okay, it's a fun story. That's a fun story. So John Paul White, who is an old friend of mine, who when I was writing in Nashville, taking trips out to write in Nashville when I was like 15. Um, I don't know if you're familiar with the Civil Wars or
Mhm.
John
Oh,
Paul
I
White,
know
but
John. Know John very well.
so we had early writing sessions together back in the day, and then I was I just felt like, even though I had written so many songs and demoed out so many songs for Sunday in Heaven, we had actually had kind of this like fluke writing session through Warner Chapel that they set up as I was at kind of like the tail end of what I thought to be like finishing my record was done. And then I got in the room with him probably in like 2018, and it just like reignited this, like, I love writing with him. He's such a complex writer and so talented, and there are just some personalities and collaborators that like in the room together just like bring out like the most raw and authentic like line of like communication, like, and he is always like, when I was really young it was different, and then being in the room with him years later as like I've been writing and touring and really evolving in my own career and as like a young adult, the magic was like still there. It just was like, a little bit more, fast forward 10 years pretty much. But so we had this amazing writing session, and then I was just really insistent on like getting back in the room with him, and I was like, I need to write songs with him. I feel like the record is not done until I do. Like, I think we're probably gonna write like some singles together, and the record needs that. So I went out to Alabama and wrote with him in his studio for 2 days, and we wrote Girls and Golden. And Girls, it's definitely got that like kind of like John Paul like twist to it. There's like that really beautiful like minor harmony on the girls chorus that's just so him, that I love so much. And so we wrote that song together. I was listening to the Mamas and Papas a lot at that time, and really just like wanted to write a song about like living in Hollywood. And also, I don't know if you're familiar with, but it's a very iconic place in Hollywood called Jumbo's. It's a bikini bar.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
And I was going and having like beers with my friends there, like just kind of like every once in a while. And it kind of was like this really like fun, like little chapter in LA of just going to the bikini bar and having Pacificos. And I was also at the time, and still am, like very into Bob Fosse and Cabaret, the movie. So it definitely has those influences. And then with John, who I don't know, there's something like very old world about him and the way that he crafts songs. He's very masterful. So that song just found its way with all those influences and people. And then Carla Azar, who played drums on the record, really just like sounds so good. I just had this conversation with her because we were rehearsing for my record release show in LA. That was last week. And she pulled me aside and she's like, I gotta hand it to you, and mostly Jay, because Jay just records drums so well and they sound so good. She was like, I'm rarely am I proud, of recorded like drums that I record on other people's records. Like, you just don't have the control that you would like to as a player that comes into the room that doesn't really have any like final say over the way things sound. But she was really happy with her performance on Girls specifically, and throughout the record. It's just, she really brought like some gravitas and like real balls to Girls. So
it's such a fun song. I also like that when you said John Paul, it looked like you wanted to say it in his accent. John Paul White.
John Paul White.
John Paul White.
Yeah. He's got, he's gothic country. He's got like a gothic country thing going on. And he's amazing.
No, I love that.
Shout out to John Paul.
Yeah. You talking about writing about Hollywood and everything, I was going to bring up the real life as well, because that's such a fun kind of listen in on that, because and I've got the title right on that, right? It's Real Life. Is that the right
Yeah.
one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of the flip on that, because obviously real life and Hollywood in the same song, that there's going to be a bit of irony that goes
Yeah.
along. What set that one in motion
Yeah.
for you?
I was on the beach. It was like one of those, like, sometimes they hit like that, where I remember my dad was visiting for the first time. Me and my sister, and we took him out to Malibu, and it was cold, so it's like kind of like he came to visit, and we like lived in this small apartment, and it was like cold and rainy in LA. It was just like
What's cold in LA mean?
like 60s,
Okay.
but like windy, like you go to the beach and like it's cold at the beach, especially in Malibu. Like it's a 10-degree difference from in the city. But the weather wasn't that great. But we were trying to like do as much as we could while he was visiting, and we were at the beach. And I remember just having this kind of like, this melody that like popped in my brain. It was like a little earworm, and I was like, I'll be right back. Went to the bathrooms, and it was like not windy in there, and just recorded the Real Life chorus and melody. And then the rest kind of just like fell together. That song's really fun to sing. I actually performed it for the first time last week, and people were singing along with the chorus, and they don't even know it because it's so easy. It's a really good sing-along song. But you're right, it has definitely that like that irony. It's kind of this like sobering look at like, oh, like living the life in Hollywood, and it just, I'm always so just feels like everyone's at the mercy of Hollywood all the time, like it truly is. Like it's the city of angels. Like that's transient. Like nothing is like really that permanent unless if you really have your shit figured out, which I don't yet, and when I was younger and first got signed, and everything was happening like really quickly, and there was just this like it was a thrill, and for me, in like my young brain, and these being my first experiences, I was like, oh, this is great. This is like great. And like, not, I wouldn't say easy, but like definitely like luxurious, and then I kind of tapped out of that, and things got harder and realer and a little grittier, and it was kind of a different Hollywood. It was a like very different Hollywood, and a very different relationship I had with that place, which I'm really grateful to have, because I've been there for 10 years. And yeah, it's just kind of, that song's just like a hodgepodge of all the different people and experiences, and highs and lows, and the fallouts and fall-ins.
Yeah, the darker side of Hollywood, when you're on the outs of Hollywood, like there are those it's like Vegas with the lights on, or a bar. It just feels like it's one of those, because we have that image of it.
It's weird. Like you can get kicked out but still be inside almost. It's a very weird, like I don't know. I always found with that place, like I have my family there. Like I live with my sister. We have an apartment, and my mom lives in Long Beach, and I don't think I would have been able to survive it without them, really. It can be really confusing. And the family has just like really held it together for me, and just being in this, like, I don't know, we're like our own little continent, running continent in that place. That's just felt like my safety net. But yeah, Real Life was just kind of like my first, like, I'm a real struggling artist now. Wow.
Just pay your dues on the back end. This is one way or the other, right?
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah. I'll wrap up with this. You talking about having just so many songs, and as I read, these songs were picked because they fit together. Do you have that thought of like what happens with the other lost dogs out there? I mean, what else could this record have been if you'd gone with 12 or 13 different songs?
I mean, those songs just weren't as good.
That's easy.
Yeah,
Fair.
they just sound good. You know, I think that I have this really bad habit that I'm trying to fix where when I like move on from something that I made, I sort of like disown it in
Hmm.
this weird way, or I'm like, oh, it's just not good. Like it just good. I gotta like scrap it and try again. You know, I'm really trying to practice like being proud and like embracing my creative output in a way that doesn't feel destructive to myself. Like um it's really okay to like build and some of the pieces not being perfect. Um but the songs, I mean, it just would have been like a different record and just like the quality. The quality. I wrote some crazy shit that maybe we'll have it today. I only bring up like maybe revisiting. I might revisit some of those things,
Hmm.
you know. Some of them just didn't feel totally ready to
Well,
be on
I
their
love the group
own.
that you have picked anyway. I mean, that's definitely
Thanks.
compliments to this record, Sunday in Heaven.
Thank
It's,
you.
again, I'll say it again. It's a fun record. It's a beautiful record. It's so well constructed and has its own little adventure. It's
Thanks.
everything I want out of an album.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk about it.
Yeah, Kyle. Thank you.
And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.